welcome into the Maize and Blue Review post-game live here as Michigan takes care of Indiana. It is a final. It's all over down at the stadium, 29-7. We are ready to get things underway. I want to introduce Jim Scarcelli, who you see there if you're watching the feed right now, a former Wolverine linebacker from the 80s. He's going to be in here tonight. Hopefully in the future, talking about Michigan after some of these games. Scar, how are you?
Danny, I'm fired up. That's a big win over a good Indiana team, and they have always given us trouble. I mean, every time we deal with these guys, we got a dogfight. So I don't care what it took to get it done. That's a good win anytime we beat Indiana.
Well, in the end, if you watch that, you might come away and think like that wasn't an impressive win. It wasn't a great win. They covered the spread. There were a lot of injuries in the game. We'll go through all of it here. But overall, you come away with a victory and you keep your opponent in single digits. I mean, the defense, I don't know, like the last 10 minutes I had to run around because I had some connection issues. But they had, 4 3-and-outs, and then they barely got one there. The defense put the clamps on them there in the second half.
Yeah, Mike McDonald I thought he had a real good game plan. Because, I watched them last week. They put 35 points on Maryland. So that team has been scoring points. And let me say this. I want to give a big shout out to our head coach because, sometimes the sign of a real good coach is getting your team ready to play every week. And, I know they were, people were probably feeling sorry for themselves, but that wasn't happening with Coach Harbaugh's team. So I think he had our team ready to play, and that's a good sign of our coach, not to let people, get down. Because sometimes we see that in the Big Ten. P.J. Fleck, he loses to Bowling Green, then he goes out and beats somebody good. Our guy had our team ready to play every week. So I was feeling real good about that in general to start out.
P.J. Fleck's team lost today to Illinois. Now, we'll stay with the things that stood out, whether it's positive or negative. You just said a positive there about the coach and talk about, keeping an opponent to single digits, how the defense played in the second half. I would also point to, Michigan has had you hate injuries. You saw Blake Corum, go out early, favoring his right leg. He came back in street clothes. But the thing here for U of M is they have been playing both backs, Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins. So you have some depth and strength at that position. And of course, Haskins, he was the number one player of the game. I mean, this is the Hassan Haskins game.
Yeah, he had a good game. He's a solid, tough, reliable kid. And yeah, it's definitely a concern to have your two other running backs out because Corum's been a pretty solid kid, and they put the 4-string kid in there at the very end. But yeah, it's definitely something to be concerned with. But he did walk off the field. He did walk through the tunnel. He didn't limp off, so it doesn't look like it's something too serious. Well, at least we'll hope. But yeah. Haskins had a heck of a game. The offensive line, I thought, was real solid. He started we had Filiaga didn't play at all. He had Zinner back in there, and we had I thought our line played good. I think Jim went into the game plan saying we're going to run the darn power play. And if you're really familiar with Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan offense, that's his foundation play, and we ran the heck out of that early and had some good early success with it.
Yeah, from left to right, when I saw it, it was Hayes at left tackle, Keegan there, 77 at left guard. Of course, Vastardis, 68 at center, Zinner, and Stuber was out there at right tackle. That was the offensive line that they went with. Haskins on the game, 27 carries, 168 yards, and a score. And, that was the thing. Michigan came out, Corum dropped that ball early on their first drive. On their second drive, they get a 4th and 1 at midfield, and that's the drive that Corum got hurt on. But there were some passes there. Cade McNamara hit Andrell Anthony. He hit Cornelius Johnson. They got down to the red zone. They ran it 3 times. They had an incomplete pass, and they had to settle for a field goal, which was, one of the themes of the game, Scar. And let me ask you, a lot of Michigan fans coming out of this game say, well, what do you think? And this was a lot of what was said last week against Michigan State. If you turn some of those red zone opportunities into touchdowns, and that was the kind of thing tonight. You get down there and having to settle for some field goals. And if you're going to be a championship team, if you're going to try to play for the Big Ten championship. If you're going to beat Ohio State, if you're going to beat the better teams, you can get away with it sometimes. But do you agree with Michigan fans or the narrative that you got to turn those into touchdowns, or you're not going to be able to really win anything?
I totally understand it, and I'm frustrated with it too. And normally, Danny, the spread teams will have trouble on the goal line in the short yardage situations. The Jim Harbaugh 2 and 3 tight end offensive football teams normally can convert short yardage situations. Normally, we're good on the goal line, and I don't have the answer for it. You would think, though, that with the type of offense we run, we would be able to have more success in there. I think we need more pass action off of our 2 and 3 tight end offense to put the defense in a little more conflict, because I don't think we give them enough pass threat in those short yardage situations. But, it's definitely frustrating. And I'll say this, and if I'm a guy who understands defense, who's coached defense, when you have a quarterback that can run the ball, like when McCarthy's in the game, it does have a little bit of an effect on your ability to run the ball in the short yardage situation, because it makes the defense honor the quarterback runs. Do you understand what I'm saying, Denny?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and when the only downside of McNamara is he doesn't give you that threat that you always have to honor, the bootlegs and the stuff that the quarterback with the run threat gives you. So I totally understand why he's he wants to play both and he puts him in there in that situation. But I totally get the frustration. I think we just got to keep pounding at it, keep working at it, and there's no real easy answer to it.
Yeah, well, Michigan gets their first touchdown. They get a turnover. Ajabo, who's been playing great. I mean, the defense, I would give it up to the defensive line, both bookend defensive ends, and then Upshaw later. I mean, they were just meeting at the quarterback. These guys have been unblockable, and that happened again tonight. Ajabo out there meeting Aiden Hutchinson at the quarterback. They get a strip. They get a fumble recovery. And then, Hassan Haskins caught a ball as well, and that's when Michigan went in for their first touchdown, got up 10-0. Indiana was able to answer that one, their only score of the game. They had a big 10-play drive themselves. They had a quarterback run in there on a third down that went for 24 yards. They had I don't know what you call that, a reverse that they threw back to the quarterback as well for a big play there. But then Michigan answered Indiana's answer, and that was Haskins running that 62-yarder. But, to your point down there, they went with a hard play action there. They had Haskins, and then Cade just had a little bootleg and just threw it over there to Schoonmaker. And then when it works, it looks great, looks easy, and it looks great for Michigan with Schoonmaker, who ended up with another score. And that was when Michigan went up 17-7, and kind of felt like they hit something there, and they kind of just went on from there. Yeah,
it was obvious that number 83 alls wasn't in the game, and you realize how effective he is as a tight end. He's a good, he can block, he stretches the defense, and Shoemaker definitely stepped up, next man up mentality. But getting back to the defense, you talked about, I was concerned about their offense because, they put 35 points on Maryland, and I thought our defense, we got good pressure with a 4-man rush. You mentioned Ajabo. He rushed the quarterback really well. I think he's got to get a little better playing the run, but overall, I thought McDonald had a great game plan because this young quarterback, he's an athletic kid, but he's a very average passer. And I think Coach McDonald said, look, we are going to focus on quarterback run. We are not going to let this quarterback beat us with the run. And that was really the only big play they had was the quarterback run. But I thought he called a good game. One thing I've noticed with Coach McDonald, week in, week out, you don't know what you're going to get from him, Denny. He might run certain things against one team in one formation, but the next week, the same exact formation, he's going to give you something different, which makes it tough to, it makes it tough to try to game plan for someone. So I thought he had a great game plan. The quarterback run, Denny, remember how Rutgers killed us with the quarterback inside run?
Yeah.
Okay. Indiana tried that twice, and we had to answer for it. And that's coaching, and that's game plan. And I was happy to see that we took that play away. But
You can see it right there. Sorry, Jim. I was just going to say, I popped up there on the screen. I threw your name up there for those saying that might not, there's probably one or two Michigan fans. People will be familiar with you, from the, after you played at Michigan, you spent a lot of time on the high school scene in coaching, whether it was Ypsilanti, Chelsea, but you stayed in, I don't know, what was over 20 years in high school coaching, right?
Yeah, Danny, I played on a high school state championship team over at Warren Woods, and then I played on 5 years for Michigan, played on a Big Ten championship team, and I coached high school football for 25 years. I coached at Ypsilanti High School under a couple of great coaches. We had some great teams there, and I coached at Warren Woods Tower High School for a year, and then I coached almost 20 years at Clintondale High School. So I've been in the game coaching and for a long time and loving every minute of it, man. Coaching high school football, I would have done it for nothing. Loved it.
Well, I love that. Jim Scarcelli with us here talking a little Michigan, Indiana. The Wolverines win the game 29-7. The things that jump out here, you had the continuation of the quarterback rotation coming in. J.J. McCarthy did get in there. And I think settling for some field goals, the quarterback rotations, and the injuries in this game are kind of the story. And we're not going to know about these injuries. I'm sure Jim's going to say, hey, we got to look, we'll see what happens tomorrow. But a number of different guys, Jymon Green, I would throw his name in there. He went down, the Michigan corner. That was on the play where Ajabo had the strip in the second quarter. Jymon Green was hurt there. You had Andrell Anthony going into the tent when he went out. Kate McNamara was going in there. But I don't know, Scar, what do you think? Like you've seen a lot of football, and you know the dynamic now of the transfer portal, and the plan that Harbaugh and Josh Gaddis have had here, and the rest of the crew for the quarterback position with Kate McNamara and J.J. McCarthy. What do you think of it? Obviously, they lost last week, and you look at those different plays in the national media, some of the local media. It might be correct, that this is a recipe for disaster, but they're staying with it. What do you think?
Denny, you're asking a guy. Okay, you got to understand my history, and my history is the same as Coach Harbaugh. I played with Jim. He's a friend of mine. He's a teammate of mine. 1983, Denny. We had a quarterback by the name of Steve Smith. We got a great football team. We win the Big Ten championship. We get into the Rose Bowl. He gets knocked out. Don Rogers clean knocks him out of the game. We put our guy named Dave Hall. He had plenty of reps. We had a chance to compete. We didn't win the game, but our backup had plenty of reps. The team was confident. We competed well in the rest of that game. The following year, 1984, we got a pretty good quarterback by the name of Jim Harbaugh. We're rolling along. We're like 4-1. We're playing Michigan State. I'm a player on that team. Our quarterback gets knocked out of the game, breaks his arm. I don't think our backup quarterback took one snap prior to that happening, to us losing our quarterback in like the 5th game of the year. And we had a rough year the rest of the way out. The defense didn't have confidence. The team didn't have much confidence. So I don't know how much of Jim's history plays into his mindset, but all I know is this. As a coach, I always played my backup quarterback early in the game, every single game, regardless of the situation. I wanted my backup quarterback to have confidence. I wanted him in the game when it's early in the game, the pressure's off. He had time to get a couple snaps from the center before he knew he was going in. Look at the scenario right now. We just lost our our other running back. We just lost Corum, and the team has a sense of confidence knowing our other guy is just as good. So a lot of times in the media, some of the guys doing the games, it's usually the former quarterbacks who are the ones that say they don't want to play the backup quarterback. But from a coaching standpoint and from my history, I want to have 2 quarterbacks that can play so we feel comfortable. Like if McNamara was to take a shot tonight, I guarantee you those 100,000 fans are feeling pretty darn confident about the Michigan Wolverine offense.
Yeah, I think all of that makes a lot of sense to me. I think that earlier in the season, when you have some games against Northern Illinois and, getting them up there and giving them a couple series, those reps are very valuable. I do think, though, when you're getting into this back half of the schedule here, And it happened last week against Michigan State. You know, they're down there in the red zone, and J.J. McCarthy, right, they could have been right outside the red zone, but that was the one where the first one that he fumbled out of bounds. They put Cade back in there, and then he took 2 shots. Neither of them, I would say, were catchable passes. He had one to Anthony down by the front of the end zone. He threw another one kind of out of the back of the end zone, just out of the reach, but still, I wouldn't grade that one out as a great pass. But my point here is maybe he presses, he comes in. If he's got 3 downs there, he can have that rhythm, but he might press a little bit, thinking he's got to make a play there. And then it is kind of the same thing when JJ comes in. Like, does he feel like, the first time that he came in, he's done that like twice now, maybe even 3 times, where he's gone running over to the side, against Northwestern, throwing back against the grain. He completed one. Of course, he completed one for a touchdown, but is he feeling like, okay, he's got to do something when he's in there? I wonder, McCarthy's a little bit taller than McNamara. If this offensive line, you're at Spartan Stadium, you got 65,000 people screaming at you. Is that going to be difficult for the running backs? You have to work on the exchange and everything. They don't know who the QB is. I mean, like, I know you guys practice for all of that. They're getting reps, but that's where it seems like the dangerous part comes in, when you're getting into big time opponents and tie games and, championships and, everything on the line.
No, I understand the point you're making. And I tell you another thing that I can't relate to is the transfer stuff. How much in Jim Harbaugh's mind does he have to think about keeping this backup quarterback satisfied? That I don't know what factor that plays into his thinking. You and I don't know that, but every coach is going to have a different philosophy, Denny, about the backup quarterback. Me as a coach, I always played my guy. My backup quarterback was always in the game early. I told my offensive coordinator, I want it done. I want my team. I just explained it to you, but and other coaches have different philosophies about it. And you're right. Maybe you're right. Give the guy a whole series. Let him get in a rhythm. Those are things that are valid points that different coaches would have different philosophies. I mean, the guy at Purdue, Jeff Brown, he was a really good quarterback, and I think he's one of the best play callers and offensive minds in the Big Ten. I mean, he plays 3 of them. You watch how he rotates those guys in there.
Yeah,
and he doesn't mind. He played the position. He doesn't have a problem with it, and I don't know that there's a right answer, man. To tell you the truth, there's not a right answer. If the right answer is what you have on your team and what makes you comfortable with your team and what you think your team needs, how confident you are in your backup quarterback.
No, you know what the right answer is, Scar? Win football games. You win football games, and you're winning, like previous to the Michigan State game, even though they were like, whoa, how is this game plan working with the QBs? As soon as you lose, it certainly opens you up for criticism. It reminds me back, now in baseball, they'll put guys in leverage situation, a closer in the 8th inning, and a setup guy in the 9th, vice versa, and all that. But it used to be like you would have your setup guy, you'd have your closer, and they would know your role. And those managers, I'd say, well, what are you doing here? He's like, well, if you do something else, like, you're opening yourself up for criticism. So it is something like that. And you know what? We don't know if Jim Harbaugh went on the road, and when he talked to J.J. McCarthy, and McCarthy was like, yeah, I'll play there, but I not only do I want to compete, I want to play. And if Jim said, look, I promise you, if you're out there and it's really close, I'm going to get you some snaps. He's got to be a man of his word then. And it might be, the same thing down the road, like to get the next big time quarterback. You might have to say, look, we're going to play both of you guys, and, we'll see how it goes from there. So, that could be a foot. Let me ask you, what do you think of Cade McNamara? He didn't have to do a whole lot in this game. I mean, Michigan was up, 17-7 at the half. He's 6 of 12. He's got 81 yards, and he's got that touchdown that we talked about. It was a really nice run play with the bootleg, and he found Schoonmaker. But, Haskins is going for 122 in the first half there. And, not gaudy numbers, but previous to Michigan State, maybe that second half of Nebraska, it's really been the formula for Michigan all year long. Run the ball and just let Cade, not absolutely cook. He's just out there kind of taking what the defense gives him, kind of managing the game, like people say.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't ask for more from a quarterback. What I want from my quarterback is secure the ball, hand the ball off. Let's get that proper handoff. Let's get us in the right play, and then be accurate. An accurate passer is so darn important. I want an accurate passer, secure the ball, get us in the right play. And he does that. He doesn't create a lot of things with his legs. He creates enough, but he has I tell you, Denny, I coached a long time, and there's a couple positions that certain things you just can't coach. And I found that the quarterback position, one of the things that you really can't coach is that sense of awareness of pressure. When you see Kate McNamara in the pocket, I mean, I think the kids might have he took a sack today. We didn't protect very well on some of those pressures. But in general, Kate McNamara feels pressure. He knows when to get rid of the ball. But I love the kid. He's accurate. In general, he doesn't turn the ball over. He doesn't make the stupid pass. I think we can win with this guy. The concept of a game man. What the heck is a game manager? A guy that doesn't make mistakes, a guy that gets you in the right play, a guy that throws accurate passes. I'll take him all day long.
Got his hands off a lot. Yeah, I think that's game manager.
The answer to your question, I love him, and we can win with him.
Yeah, J.J. McCarthy's not a game manager. You're like, he's going to run around and he's going to try to make some throws that other guys aren't going to make, and so we've seen that. But tonight with Cade, when he hit that 50-yarder to Kojo down the middle, that was a beautiful pass. I mean, that was a lot of air yards under it as well. And what we've seen those crossing routes, he can zip that one down. I mean, if you're 20 yards on the move with somebody, he can put some mustard on it. And, he puts a very catchable pass. That one that Andrell Anthony, the touchdown to San Risto last week, those come to mind. And Jim Harbaugh said, you can't throw those any better. Doesn't matter who you're talking about. You can't throw that pass any better. And so we've seen a little bit of that from him. And that's what it's going to come down to. Maybe not so much tonight, Jim, but when we're talking about next week against Penn State and then, of course, against Ohio State, I mean, we're down to here we are. We're down to just a couple games now where you can see Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State. That's it.
Yeah, we're getting in the nitty gritty, man. I'd like to see us throw a deep pass from our end sometimes because if you watch Michigan enough, Josh Gaddish, normally he won't throw the deep one until we get near the 50-yard line. I think, and the scouting reports show it too. I'm sure the people that play us know that. And we did hit a deep one today. We did it late in the game, but I think we need to throw some deep ones on our end, once, twice a game, just so they see it in the scouting report and they have to defend it. But yeah, hey, Penn State is going to have. They're going to be real good on defense. They got big they've recruited like we have. We're going to see the kind of talent that a little better talent than we saw today. They got a heck of a defensive coach. And they're very good on defense. Their quarterback was outstanding today. I kept watching every third down conversion. They kept converting against Maryland. I guess you can maybe kind of tell who I might have betted on because I wasn't too happy about those third down conversions. And then the Maryland kid comes down and throws a pick six at the end. I wasn't happy to see that. But Penn State will be tough going on the road, but they're a beatable team. Illinois went in there and beat them. They're up and down though. Like I said, you got to be the good teams play every week. They play consistently, and Coach Harbaugh has us playing at least at a good level every week. And but yeah, Penn State will definitely be a challenge.
Yeah, speaking of Jim Harbaugh, a couple things coming in from down at the stadium there. Jim Harbaugh was asked whether the players who left the game will be back next week. I'm hopeful. Don't know for sure. That was one quote. Here's another one on Blake Corum. Harbaugh said, quote, "I don't think it's serious. Somewhere less than serious." So, maybe, a chance to have Blake Corum against Penn State. And, Jaimon Green, Andrell Anthony, those are the guys off the top of my head that I'm thinking about that went down that, we'll be able to find out when you're thinking about coming up next week against Penn State. Go ahead.
There's another approach you could take is the old Hayden Fry approach. Remember the old Iowa coach, right? He had his doctorate in psychology. When you played Iowa, everybody was hurt. Everybody was injured. This guy was going to be out. This guy was going to be out. That's all you read all week. And then when you show up to Iowa City, Nobody's hurt. Nobody's injured. Everybody's 100%. So it doesn't do any good to tell you that, you could take different philosophies on that. And Jim's approach sounded pretty confident, but there's a psychological approach that old Haig Fry used to use.
Michigan wins it 29-7. Jim Scarcelli, linebacker, number 85, wore at Michigan, here on the TMBR, the Maize and Blue Review, post-game live. A lot of injuries piling up on both sides out there. Let me look and read a few more things. Daniel Dash, TMBR, he is down there. He's our beat writer. He is down at the news conferences. He indicates that Jim Harbaugh says he anticipates tight end Eric All will return next week against Penn State. So there's some good news. He has a quote from DJ Turner, the corner for Michigan, talking about David Ojabo. He says, "I don't know if I've seen anyone personally grow as fast as him." And you know what? We've gone from Ojabo, they said it on the broadcast, scout team. So I'm in there. He came in a little bit last year in the strange year, but he's out there. And, like Kwity Paye, first-round draft pick. I saw him on, Monday night. It was against the Jets. But, he's flying off the edge. He's ripping down the quarterback and everything. But, the tear that Ajabo's on is as good as a tear as any pass rush again that Michigan's had. They've had some pretty good ones when you think about Uche and kind of down the line here. There's been a few guys that can get after the quarterback, and Ajabo seems like, he's right there as the next one.
Yeah, it's kind of a similar situation because Rashawn Gary was the guy getting all the ink. That's the guy we heard about. And then who's this other guy? I kept watching Kwity. I'm like, this guy's just as good. Every time I watch Kwity Paye, I'm like, this kid's going to be a player too. And Ojabo, he's got the pass rush. He's got the edge talent. That's the position I play. I totally understand what they've got those guys doing. He drops in coverage. He rushes the quarterback. And he definitely has the first step. He's got the pass rush down. That is a great part of his game. Like I said earlier, he's got to get a little better, in my opinion, in the run game, taking on the guards, tackles, playing run. He's got to get a little better at that. But he's young, and Taylor Upshaw made some plays tonight. He hasn't been getting a lot of snaps, but he made some plays in there. But Denny, I like the depth we have on defense. The philosophy that Coach McDonald has is I love it because I played in an era where the second string guy didn't get many snaps. It was a different mentality, and the mentality now is everybody plays. You're gonna see 24, 25 guys play on defense, and I love it. But I think the foundation, Denny, of our defense, it all starts with those two inside guys, 15 and 58. They got to be good for us to have it. Anytime those two guys are good and not getting knocked off the ball, Hinton and Maize Smith, it all starts with those two guys. We got to be, especially against teams like Indiana. Indiana wants to run that zone, and they want to push us off the ball. And Maize Smith and Hinton have been pretty darn solid all year. They're both getting better every week. And Spike played in there a little bit, and the transfer Whitley played in there a little bit too. So, but those guys are good. We're rotating linebackers. We're developing depth at linebacker. And I just love it seeing the depth that's being developed that, when Hutchinson and these guys leave, we're not going to miss a beat. Or if guys get injured, this and that, bam, we're in good shape. We've got depth.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the defensive line all the way through. You mentioned the guys inside. I mean, of course, kind of like the glamour spots, the defensive ends. But Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo were meeting at the quarterback routinely. They kept going 3 and out. They just didn't have any answers. You talk about get the ball out quickly. I mean, it didn't matter. I mean, they were getting to them. They were shutting everything down, and they took over this game. A couple things that are breaking here. We have the game time announcement for next week at State College. Michigan and Penn State will be a noon kickoff.
All right.
See, that's for a team spokesman. That's from Isaiah Hole from Wolverines Wire. He's getting that out there. And this is the Maize and Blue Review. If you're out there and you're watching this YouTube, if you go down to the comment section and you throw something up there, we will be able to take your comments on that. Well, we can get your feedback through. I should also look on our message board. I want to ask you, you mentioned about those linebackers and everything. I was a little bit surprised at the beginning of the year because I liked Michael Barrett last year. Michael Barrett looked like he played pretty well for U of M, but Nakai Hill Green and you got Junior Colson got in there and took his spot, took his snaps, but Barrett was in there from the get-go, and he was running around a lot. So back on the field, necessity or whatever else, competition, but he got some run tonight. And he looked pretty good from what I saw.
The guy's a good athlete. He's a team guy, and he plays with energy and enthusiasm. But Denny, with the coaching change and the philosophy change on defense, I think his skill set didn't match up as well with this type of a scheme, and I think that's why he's not. I don't think that's why he's getting as much time as he did last year, because the Don Brown defense, it was so much blitzing and moving around and different things, and I think it matched his skill set better. This philosophy, the Mike McDonald philosophy, has two big. They have two inside linebackers for the most part, playing traditional over the guard. Reading stuff from those positions. So I think he's a victim of a change in philosophy that hurt his chance to get more playing time. But I watched the kid run down on kickoffs. He's on punt. He appears like he's playing with energy and enthusiasm. And he did get a lot of time tonight. I noticed he did get more snaps tonight, and I'm happy for him that he's a team guy and he's doing everything he can for Michigan.
Well, let me ask you some of the burning questions that the Michigan fans that are on the message board right now at the Maize and Blue Review are putting out here tonight, and it's the banner banter. Let me just throw these at you. This one says, "Please end the J.J. McCarthy experiment." All right, Jim, we talked about this a little bit. We saw the snaps tonight, but you are getting into a 3-game season here where everything is on the table. You got to beat Penn State, you got to beat Maryland, you got to beat Ohio State, and you can have a great year. I mean, as we sit here tonight, and it's a fallback night, you get that extra hour, but we're getting close to midnight, and it's on with a 3-game season, and they got Penn State and Ohio State. You talked about it a little bit earlier, but if you're just joining us here, do you think that Jim Harbaugh continues? He's said up to this point, like, it's going to continue. I say it every week. Do you think the J.J. McCarthy experiment, rotation, the playing time will continue, should continue?
I think Coach has his plan. Jeff Brom's doing it. We're building that confidence, like I said. I understand the fans' thoughts, but when you're the guy, when you're the coach, watching Coach Schembechler for 5 years, there's so many things I learned from him, but it was how much emphasis he put on the second string guy was just as important as the first string guy. And Jim saw the same things that I saw. And I carried that philosophy when I was working in business, and I carried on that philosophy as a coach. And I understand the frustration with some people that look at it like that, that it's an experiment. But even Coach Harbaugh said the fumble against Michigan State, I was surprised to hear him say it. He actually put it more on Corum. Did you hear what he said after?
Yeah.
He put it a little more on Corum. I don't know if I didn't understand why he would even assign blame, period, to anyone, because it doesn't do any good. But I get the frustration. I understand why Jim's doing it. Again, I was a player in '83 when we lost our quarterback who started 11 straight games, and our backup had a lot of reps. He got a lot of reps through the season, and he went in the game, and we were able to compete and really not miss a beat. So, there's two philosophies to that. And the people that don't agree with it, well, they would probably be the coach that, when your guy gets hurt, then you're going to be looking around and your guy has no reps and you don't know what he's doing. And he's, that's a whole nother different deal there. So,
but the flip side is JJ has got a lot of time up to this point. Now you've got the 3-game season. You go out there and say, okay, Kate, this is your game. We're going out there with you. We're not putting McCarthy in. I don't know. Maybe he's got to pacify him, or he feels like he might go hit the transfer portal. But if they're talking about the expectations for the position and they come up with a game plan and they feel like the best way to go about it is let McNamara take all of the snaps on the road. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think they're going to continue to do what they have done here, but it could backfire on them. We've seen that, but the part that when you get into a game on the road at Happy Valley and everybody's going nuts here, I just wonder if the line, they hear McNamara's name, and like even tonight, like they had McCarthy coming in for a play. Michigan called a timeout. Next thing you know, they put McNamara back in there. Indiana called the timeout. Like so, the line's got to be like, who's back there? I don't know. Is that an issue? And the whole thing with that exchange with Corum, it's like that could be an issue too. Like you're presenting the ball different. You got a little bit of a height issue there. I mean, those are the things.
I totally get it. There is a downside to it. There's no question there's a downside to it. But you got to also remember this. If I'm coaching defense, if I'm preparing to play Michigan, and I know that you got this guy, McCarthy, that you bring in sometimes. So now you bring him in, and it's 4th down and 3 from the 20-yard line. The fact that he's in the game on 4th and 3, what now do I have to defend, Denny? What plays do I now have to worry about because he's in the game?
You got to think about the run.
There you go. I got quarterback run that is now a factor that the defense has to deal with. So the scouting report has to deal with it. So I get the downside, and you mentioned the downside. It isn't all upside. I agree with you. It's not all upside, but there is some downside. But let me also say this. As a guy who played, and I played a few plays as a freshman, didn't play at all as a sophomore, but every single play that you play as a young guy in a game is worth 50 in a scrimmage over on State Street. Maybe 100. So every game rep is magnified way more than any snap you're going to take up on State Street in a scrimmage. You understand what I'm saying there? And you can't replicate that. You can't duplicate that. To build that sense of confidence, to play in front of 110,000 people on national television, you just need game reps. So I agree with the fans and their frustration that there is a downside, and you mentioned the downside, but you got to also remember some of the upsides that I mentioned about the confidence in the kid. So there's a two-edged sword to it, and I think that's he's the guy. That's the direction he wants to go in, and I think we've said enough about it, though, man.
All right. Well, I got more quick hitters. You got something else that's on your mind right there?
Just know that game reps are magnified, and you can't duplicate them.
All right, they were 110 short of 110,000 a night, 109,890, the announced crowd for the 11th night game in Michigan history. It was a success on the scoreboard, 29-7. Michigan comes up with a win. They're 8-1. They're on to Happy Valley. Concerning that game right there, you were talking about betting lines earlier. You watched the Penn State game earlier as well, and you've seen these. If you had to right now put out a betting line on Michigan, Penn State, noon start next week, I have an idea on what I think the line will be. Jim, where would you put it?
That game might be a pick'em. I'm thinking maybe probably a pick'em. Right? It's not going to be more than 2.5, something like that.
I thought Penn State favored by 2.5.
That makes sense. Home field,
right?
Home field, that makes sense.
It's going to be pretty close. Yeah, it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be. I see people thinking that Michigan could be favored by 3 or 4. I think Penn State will be favored, but you might be right. It could be a pickup. So we'll find out about that. That's always. I wanted to ask you towards the end of the first half. Indiana came out and they decided to run the clock out. Brock Heward, who was the color commentator, along with Joe Davis, he was indicating that, hey, if I was Jim Harbaugh, I would take some timeouts. I was thinking the same thing. Why not call some timeouts there? Michigan's up 17-7. Did you like how he handled the clock out towards the half? What were your thoughts there?
I understand. you kind of want to. You don't want them to get that first down. You don't want to call a timeout and let them get that first down, and then take a shot and get it to the 50. I understood. He's up 17-7. We've both seen that stab you in the back. You've seen guys call the timeout, and then he converts, and now you gave him more time. So, being up, I'm not going to question that decision. I've been on both sides of that thing, calling the timeout and not doing it. But, hey, Denny, how about this? Did you notice that we had somebody catching punts differently that hasn't caught a punt all year? Turner, number 5.
DJ Turner was back there.
He caught 2 punts. You know how important that is? I'm going to give you a Schembechler line. You know the hardest thing to do in football?
Catch a punt?
Catch a punt.
I didn't know that. You let me. That was pretty easy for me to come in. Well, good. It's good. And, it had been A.J. Henning has been the
yeah. And that's not easy to do. And, again, we talk about game reps, right? You talk about what happens if something happens to Henning and he get hurt. Now we got a guy that caught a couple. I mean, we had Caden Colasar there early in the year. You remember how he was? And we were crossing our fingers every time he was going to catch a punt. You remember?
I did notice that Blake Corum went out early. So on kick return, Michigan had Andrell Anthony, the true freshman, number 1 back there, as the deep man. So he was the second man up there. Let's before we talk about that Penn State game. And how we think that's going to play out. Let's just look at college football today. In the Big Ten, Michigan State loses to Purdue 40-29. Did you take any of that game in? Surprised at all that the Spartans, who were ranked 3rd in the college football playoff poll, ended up in going down in West Lafayette?
I watched every second of it. I watched every down. And Purdue – I think so much of Jeff Brom as an offensive play caller. That's one of the last guys in the Big Ten I would want to defend is Jeff Brom. He is so hard to figure out. He does everything you're not supposed to do when you're supposed to. And the guy has courage. And he's on his 3rd defensive coordinator. And I think he finally has a good one. But Jeff Brom put together a great game plan. They slowed down Walker big time. They didn't have big turnovers. They played a great game. He's a tough guy to defend. They had the Spartan defense wheeling, and I didn't see nothing in that game that said upset. I didn't see anything that said Michigan State had better players. It was really a push in terms of talent from my perspective, and I just thought that. Purdue made more plays, and their coach is a heck of an offensive coach.
What about at high noon? Ohio State goes into Lincoln. They beat Nebraska. It was a 1-score game at the half and ends up 26-17. C.J. Stroud, a little bit dicey with some of the balls that he was throwing. He turned it over twice. Ohio State looked like they were having a hard time. Nebraska's got a pretty good front. They were having a little bit of a difficult time running the ball, and they were going to the pass. They didn't have Garrett Wilson. But they're stacked at wide receiver. Olave's great. And then one of those top recruits that came in, he's a sophomore now, Jackson Smith in JSN. He goes for, I'd have to look at his stat line, but he was over 200 yards, 15 catches, 240 yards for the sophomore. So they didn't miss Garrett Wilson. But, if Ohio State plays like that against Michigan, I don't think they will, but Wolverines will have a pretty good shot.
Hey, Nebraska's a good team. It's unbelievable how they've been so close in all these games, and they defended Ohio State pretty good. What I'm seeing that's I think a little different in this Ohio State team is they don't have the offensive linemen that are just pushing people off the ball. I don't know that they have the run game like they've had in the past, and I'm hoping that's true. But I do believe because. They had a hard time in short yardage against Penn State. They really didn't push Nebraska around at all. They did defend Nebraska pretty good. We had trouble second half defending Nebraska, a lot of the option stuff, a lot of the things they were doing. But Ohio State is a beatable team. Their offensive line is not on the par of what I think we've been facing. And their defense is a team we can move the ball on. Yeah, and C.J. Stroud is up and down. Sometimes the kid looks great, and he's still a young quarterback.
Right. Right. Well, speaking of guys that went off, Jahan Dotson went off for Penn State. His final numbers were incredible. 11 passes, school record 242 yards, and 3 touchdowns against Maryland. Dotson's going to be playing easily on Sunday. He may be taken in the first round of the draft. He's that good. So Michigan's going to have to definitely come up with a plan for Dotson this week. But you watch that game, you think that Michigan contained one guy here in pretty close game, kind of a toss-up fourth quarter, and a game that they'll have a chance to win coming up this week.
Yeah, that game, it's going to be it's going to be a dogfight. They've got talent like we have talent. They've got great coaches. They're going that defense, the talent and the coaching on Penn State's defense might be the best we've seen so far this year. I think they're better than Washington had players. I don't think they had great coaching. Wisconsin had big defensive linemen. I don't think they had the secondary and the linebacker. I think Penn State's defense is going to be the best we've seen all year. And their quarterback makes plays with his legs too, man. And they call a good game. James Franklin, he's tough to defend. He puts you in a lot of conflict, quarterback run. A lot of things that they do is tough to defend. We got to play our A game, but it's definitely a game we can win. But there's not a big talent edge either way when I look at us playing Penn State.
Going over to the top 25 and closing out here, Bama squeaked by LSU. That was going on at the same time as Michigan, just 20-14. Some of the other games in the top 25 that stood out to me, Cincinnati, they have to put on a show if they have want to sway some voters or curry some favor or anything else. They didn't do that today. They just get by Tulsa. Tulsa had an opportunity late in that game, so that wasn't good. If you're a backer of a group of 5, want to see them get a shot, all those kind of things. They win 28-20, but that's going to go down. People are going to look at that and say, hey, I told you so.
Yeah, I don't know. If you ask different coaches around the country, who would you rather play at a neutral site, Cincinnati or Michigan? Cincinnati or one-loss Michigan State? Cincinnati or Oklahoma on a neutral site? Who would you rather play? I guarantee you they'd be lining up to play Cincinnati. That's my thought. The thing, playing in the Big Ten, you got to play every week. These guys have to play, a couple games. They have to get ready for Notre Dame. They have to get ready for Indiana. And it's just different when you have to get ready week in, week out to play. Like what happened to Michigan State today to go on the road and play a Big Ten team right after a big rival. It's just a lot more demanding.
Yeah, well, Scar, I think the narrative this week is going to be that Michigan's got to, when they get opportunities down on the red zone, they got to cash them in big-time games on the road like they're going to be playing this week. I agree with that. It's a lot easier said than done. But I do think, Cade McNamara's done a nice job getting them in the plays, but he's got to elevate his game a little bit too. I mean, now's the time. If you want to win a championship, if you want to play with everything at least on the line against Ohio State, which we used to expect every year. It hasn't been like that all the time. It's been a few years, but hasn't been that many years actually. If you look back, the 62 points and 56 points, there was something to play for. But I think he needs to elevate his game a little bit, and it feels to me like it's going to be on the offense a little bit more than the defense this week in Happy Valley. What are your final thoughts here about Michigan's chances here against Penn State?
Look, Denny, I'm going to get back to Schembechler again. Anytime you play good run defense like we did today and secure the football, I mean, we only had one turnover until the end. You got a chance. You play great defense and you secure the football and you don't screw around in the kicking game. So my thoughts are this. They're going to have a great defensive coach with great athletes, but I think we are better offensively than we've been in a while. And but if we secure the ball, and I think with this quarterback, as accurate and as smart as he is, we have a good chance of moving the ball as good as we ever have down there. And I think our defense is going to be one of the best defenses we've ever taken down there. I'm a big Mike McDonald fan. He's doing a lot of the same things that we did 35 years ago when I played. The philosophy is very similar. I just love what they're doing on defense. We don't ask a lot of guys we don't put them in man-to-man, by themselves situations. We do a lot of things with coverage. We do a lot of things with scheme. We create a lot of problems, but it's simple. It's simple stuff. We don't make too many mental mistakes. We made some last week. We're not going to talk about that, but I love Coach McDonald. They're very sound, and I think we have a good chance against Penn State.
I'm picking Michigan 30-27 right now. You don't have to give me a score, but I'm going 30-27.
I think you're right in the ballpark, man. I think there's going to be some scoring, and I think we're going to move the ball pretty good on them.
All right. Well, hey, we'll evaluate this tape, but I could tell you we had a pretty good game plan. I was running around a little bit because my internet was out. Like I had 10 minutes. I ran upstairs, and all of a sudden it says nothing, and I go upstairs to check the router, and the lights are all off. I'm going down to the fuse box. I'm running back down there. I'm going back up. And obviously I was able to get on, but I'm surprised that I was. So I was a little hectic there at the beginning. You were very calming influence. You did a great job, Scar. I hope I can talk with you again coming up as soon as this Saturday after Michigan beats Penn State. I'm
in, brother. I love it. Go Blue, man.
All right. Hey, thanks for your time. This has been the Maize and Blue Review, TMBR. Post-game live, Michigan wins it 29-27 for Jim Scarcelli. Dennis Fithian, thanks for watching.